Hey everybody, today I'd like to welcome Bill Clerico onto the show. Bill, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's awesome to be here and to be on the show.
Great. Well, the Fulton Career Cast is excited to have you. And before we kind of dive deeper into kind of background, Bill, could you just give us a little details, kind of what your world looks like now with WePay and kind of where you see it going?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, WePay was acquired by JPMorgan Chase, and so a big part of what we're doing today is just continuing to integrate our capabilities into the bank. Obviously, everything that's going on with COVID-19 has been pretty disruptive to our business and to the bank's business, and so we're hard at work, trying to keep things working and helping our employees, sort of work from home and be effective in providing all the services to clients that we have to do. So it's been a time of pretty big change.
Absolutely. And how has that adjustment been as a manager of people with a remote workforce now? How have you kind of adjusted on the fly, and kind of what have you seen as some successes and some kind of iterations as you go?
Yeah, I think the good news is like the tools are all there, right? We're on Zoom right now, recording this. I think people have the tools to be able to work from home on their laptops and all that. So that's really great. There's collaboration tools, there's chat tools. So I think from a like technical perspective, it's actually been pretty easy. I think what's been much harder is sort of the more personal side and helping people sort of adapt to this new remote environment. Think about how do you communicate in these remote environments? How do you, write more documents, for example? How do you make sure the right people are invited to the right meetings? How do you make sure everyone gets a voice on a Zoom chat, as opposed to kind of the room? And then also, I think just being really sensitive to the, what people have going on at home. I think some people might live alone, and so this is a time where they've been, by themselves for the last 2 months and could be, lonely and being sensitive to that. Some people have young kids at home, and so with two parents that work, and so it's harder for them to have a quiet space to work or be able to put in that consecutive 8-hour day. And so I think the more challenging part as a manager has been how do you make sure that your people are doing okay and that you're supporting them even in this remote environment.
Absolutely. All critical things that everybody across every industry is feeling right now. So, Bill, would love to kind of dive deeper and kind of time travel a little bit back in time. And I think for your kind of career journey, it almost pays us due to start really where you started freshman year at BC. Would love to kind of hear more about your experience when you got there and some experience that you had that kind of helped you craft along your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So freshman year at BC, I lived in Casca 104, and I was fortunate. My freshman year roommate was Richard Aberman, and so Rich became my co-founder of WePay. So it was a very important time in my life. One of our first opportunity as co-founders to have to really figure out how to partner in that sort of closed, stressful environment that a freshman dorm room can be.
Absolutely.
And so, we figured if we could live together and share a bedroom and do all that, then we could probably start and run a company together. And so that was sort of an important foundation for our relationship. Other stuff that happened freshman year. One of the really, I think, valuable things I did at BC was I volunteered with the American Red Cross. And so I worked on their disaster action team, which really, when there's house fires or other sort of local disasters, which happen all the time, although we may not hear about them, the American Red Cross will respond anytime, day or night, and help people that are affected by those disasters. And so if, maybe your apartment building burned down, the American Red Cross will actually put you up in a hotel and connect you with mental health resources and give you, food and clothes and a blanket to kind of get through the night, which was a really cool opportunity I had through BC. And I think that was one of my really kind of first tastes of leadership. So, I got to eventually run the BC team. We were responsible on Monday nights to respond throughout the Massachusetts Bay Area. And, it was to be able to get a bunch of college students out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning to go respond when they weren't getting paid. It was a volunteer thing. It was my kind of first real taste of challenging leadership. But it was awesome, and it was like one of the most fun experiences I had. I learned a lot about people and about leadership. And, I really got a lot from working with that team. And that was, a really formative experience for me.
Absolutely. And some key skills that you just mentioned right off the top there that you gain working with people, leading a team, and kind of helps you now back in your current job, current role with Chase and WePay. And so now let's dive deeper into more internship experience, or kind of what were your thoughts when you're going through school, maybe skills that you wanted to gain or just experiences that you wanted to have? Because I know you jumped around from a few things there early on.
Yeah. I think I cast a pretty wide net at BC. Like I didn't come in with like a really specific plan of like, I'm here at A and I need to get to B and I'm going to do these 4 things. I sort of said, I'm here at BC. There's a just wealth of opportunities here. I could try a ton of things. So I actually came into BC as a political science major. I then switched majors to math and then switched majors again to computer science. So it took me a little while to figure out where I wanted to go. I think the same thing on the internship side. I did the American Red Cross internship. I interned for the U.S. Army doing some like communications research. I interned at Goldman Sachs doing software development. And so kind of, I did, and so tried a bunch of different things. I actually also interned at a startup that was funded by Peter Bell, doing really early stage marketing. I was kind of the first non-founder employee at that company for the summer. And so it was, I tried a bunch of different things. And I think the value of that was I really got to see what I really loved, what I didn't love, what resonated with me, what didn't resonate with me. And also got like to meet a whole bunch of different people. I got to see how a big nonprofit in the American Red Cross ran and was managed. I got to see how a Wall Street bank ran and was managed. I got to see how a really early stage startup ran and was managed. And so, getting that exposure to lots of different leaders, lots of different people, lots of different organizations, I just think gave me sort of a wealth of experience to draw on later in my career. I think one of the tough things is like you graduate, you go sign up for your first job. You've got like a sample size of one of like, that's your experience. You only know one company, one group of people. And so it was really helpful for me to be able to look back at my time at BC and say like, okay, I've actually worked in like 4 or 5 different organizations and worked in 4 or 5 different cultures. And I kind of had a little bit of a breadth of experience to draw on. Granted, it was a couple weeks and I was a summer intern, so it wasn't like deep experience, but I got to see a bunch of different things, which was valuable to me.
Absolutely. So you kind of, like you said, cast your net wide and you get a bunch of different skills that then allow you to say, what am I good at? Or what do I want to be good at? And where can I kind of add value or kind of pursue my interest and make a career out of it? And so now, one of the themes of our show is identifying, adversity and going through tough times and overcoming tough times. And we'd be remiss if we didn't just mention the COVID crisis has kind of crippled the economy and kind of we're at a standstill. And so some of our students are kind of in this time of saying, okay, I don't know necessarily what's next. I might have had an internship or a full-time offer rescinded. Now, when you graduate at the heart of, or at the most booming time in the financial service sector. And so you started at Jefferies. And now, could you tell your story about when you were there and what you saw, and then when you ultimately left during the heart of the recession?
Yeah, for sure. So I graduated in May of 2007, which was like the absolute peak of the market. Myself and many of my classmates were all like running to go work in investment banking and financial services. It was really kind of a boom time for that industry. So I worked at Jefferies and Company in Waltham, just outside Boston, and really got to work closely with a bunch of technology entrepreneurs that were selling their companies or buying other companies or taking their companies public. So it was a super interesting job. I learned a ton. I learned to work really hard. I was working like 100+ hours a week, and it was a pretty competitive environment. I learned a lot, but I also knew like, hey, this wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Meanwhile, there started to be some sort of like shudders in the economy, right? Like we started to get through 2008. I didn't realize how bad it was going to be, but I kind of said, I've been here a year. I've learned a ton. I think I'm ready. What I really sort of am drawn to are these entrepreneurs that we're working with, our clients. I want to go do that. I don't want to go be a career investment banker. And so, decided, hey, I'm going to work on some startup ideas. I talked to Rich a bunch of times and we kicked around a bunch of things and said, okay, we feel pretty good. We're going to go leave and start a company. And so, I resigned. I think at the beginning of August. And then, or no, sorry, I probably resigned mid-August.
Yep.
And then I think like it was early September, 3 weeks later, Lehman Brothers imploded and like the whole economy melted down. And I was like, man, that might not have been such a smart idea. And I remember Rich and I sort of talking like, did we just make a huge mistake as the kind of economy starts like crashing down around us? And the two of us are living in my apartment, me in my bed and him on the couch, wondering like, oh no, this could be really bad. I think so when it comes to sort of tough times, that was a tough time. We thought we were going to be able to go like pitch some venture capitalists, raise some money, and the reality was like no one was investing. Everyone was really scared of what was going to happen. People were like, it was the worst recession since the Great Depression. The financial system wasn't working, and so like people were very much like on the sidelines pulling back. And so we only had like my savings to live off of, which was really scary. But I think the positive side of it was there was like no competition. No other companies were getting started. Everything was really cheap. We were able to like live very cheaply. We moved to Revere and lived in this like great apartment, and it only cost us like $800 a month. We we're able to like hire some kids from MIT to help us out for like $15 an hour. And so we were able to sort of, while it was scary and while we couldn't raise money, it also afforded us a whole bunch of benefits to sort of be creative and take advantage of like all this disruption that's happening in the economy. And so eventually we were able to, we applied to Y Combinator, we ended up getting funded by Y Combinator, we moved to Silicon Valley, and, the economy started to come back, and, we got through it. But it was definitely very much a long, scary 2 years to figure that out. But I'll say is like we fast forwarded to today, it feels very scary again. There's massive unemployment numbers, there's kind of all these things happening. But I think my learning from the last time around was that while it's scary, there's also lots of opportunity that gets created when there's these types of dislocations. And so there are companies that are, taking advantage of the situation and actually doing quite well. And as things start to come back, and they will come back, there's a lot of economic growth that gets created there. And so I think my advice to people is just to sort of be creative, be open-minded, think about where are the areas of the economy that are benefiting from this, and think about if there's ways you can sort of add value and help people in those areas.
Absolutely. And like you said, after the last recession, some of the biggest companies today, Uber, Airbnbs of the world, were created or founded right during that sweet spot and took advantage like you did as well. And so now as a student, you just mentioned a little bit about areas that could be of growth opportunity. Now you get to sit in the seat where you see that more and you're interacting with people out in San Francisco. Where do you see, if I'm a student and I'm saying, where are some growth industries, or where with COVID, with people being home right now, where are some opportunities that I can add value? What do you kind of see that world look like today?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the technology industry as a whole, like there are parts of it that are not doing so great. I think Airbnb announced layoffs this week. Uber has laid folks off. So there's areas of the tech industry that are certainly hurt by what's going on with COVID, but there's also areas of the tech industry that are doing great, right? Zoom, for example, or sort of online collaboration, software that helps people work in a remote environment. I think as a sector, technology is a great place to work. There's a whole bunch of skills. You can work in marketing, you can work in finance, you can work in software development. So, it's a really sort of diverse industry that has a lot of different types of jobs in it. But I think as a sector, it's a growth sector, right? It's disrupting the old way of doing things. It's nimble, it's adaptable. And so I think it's a great place to look. Even if you're not a computer science major, I think, whether you're studying marketing or finance or, English, you can, there's ways to find opportunities to work in tech, and there's parts of tech that are doing really well right now.
Absolutely. And so I'm a student, and so I think you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but when I think of tech, I think of more of the, the 10X engineer or the computer programmer, and they add value to these firms. But maybe I'm a student that is more articulate, or, I'm good with numbers. There's opportunity there as well. Or how do I identify that opportunity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, great example is like we have several folks that are English majors that work at WePay that help us write content for our blog, for marketing materials, for social media. And so like great example, like tech companies need to write stuff too. It's not just a bunch of people, writing code. And so I think like there's a bunch of those types of opportunities. In terms of how to identify them, I think there's a couple ways to do it. Obviously, the really big companies, the Facebooks, the Googles, the large ones, they do campus recruiting. There's websites. There's all kinds of sort of formal ways to sort of get in touch with those types of companies. Most startups too have jobs pages and all that, and I think many of them will post these types of jobs online. So that's definitely a great place to start. I would say probably the better way to do it though, after you've sort of cast a wide net and maybe tried that, is to really reach out through the BC network. Find people on LinkedIn or through the alumni database that work at these companies. I think 99% of the time people will be willing to answer an email from a BC student. Maybe they can help with a referral or give you some advice about good places to look. And, that type of advice is really kind of invaluable. I remember when we were starting WePay, I kind of did something similar where I just started reaching out to BC alumni, and, a well-written, personalized sort of cold email. I think you'd be surprised at how effective they can be. People really want to help BC students.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned it before. We are in the Zoom kind of sweet spot where we're all remote, kind of trying to figure out how to continue to be productive and get our jobs done. But with the remoteness, I think you mentioned it before, can come that isolation, and everybody wants to help, especially in different positions, and, do their part. And being in this sweet spot, that cold email or cold message, from a BC student to a BC alumni can go a long way. So really insightful, really insightful. So Bill, question for you in terms of we'll kind of just wrap this up. Skills that you would say, some of the biggest traits that you did in your early professional journey that helped you to this day. What do you think some of the biggest skills that you have and where you developed them from?
Yeah, a couple thoughts there. It's a great question. I'm still learning today. I think
Absolutely.
That's kind of, careers are a never-ending journey of learning and trying to, grow your skills. I'd say in investment banking, I learned a couple things. I learned to work really hard. Like that was like the ability to really push myself and work those types of hours really helped. And, today I'm lucky I don't have to work 100 hours a week, but I know I can when I need to, and I know what sort of hard work really looks like. I also learned in investment banking, like kind of the language of business and the way to communicate around business. So how to build really compelling PowerPoint presentations, how to talk on the phone and negotiate and, press for information without sharing too much, and build a relationship with someone sort of across the phone. I learned sort of finance, really, nitty gritty finance, how to build strong financial models, how to talk about financial models, how to test financial models, how to check financial models. And so, while I'm not an investment banker today, I definitely use those skills. I, work hard. I, have to sort of communicate different business strategies and things like that. And I have to, really, being a fintech company and a payments company, the numbers and the quantitative side really matters. And so, I'm able to kind of leverage a lot of those skills. I think as an entrepreneur, I learned, determination, not giving up. I learned, resourcefulness and scrappiness and creativity. When you go and start a company, it's like just you don't have a marketing team, you don't have a finance team. So you have to figure out how to like create those things out of nothing. And so, we did a whole bunch of creative marketing to kind of get our name out there, knowing that we didn't have those resources. And today, I think really what I focus on learning now is just how to lead people at bigger and bigger scales, how to communicate clearly, how to set goals, how to really make sure that we're performing well, and really managing kind of large organizations, attracting talent, making sure it's a great place to work. And those are skills I think that are really transferable and, not the easiest thing in the world to learn. And I haven't been perfect in my journey to learn them.
Absolutely. So to wrap this up, for students, they're asking the questions when, like you did say, this is going to turn. We don't know how long. We don't know how long it's going to take for consumer confidence to come back. But when we do turn and we kind of go back to the normal of work, what do you kind of see that office space looking like, or kind of what the future of work looks like after COVID-19? And how can students start to prepare now so that when they graduate or when they start their full-time roles, they're getting ready, or they're ready for it?
Yeah, I mean, I think no one really knows. I think let me start there.
Absolutely.
But I would say, we're spending a lot of time thinking about that because we're opening, a new facility. We're thinking about what that new facility would be. I think there's a future where, work is a lot more remote than it is or was before COVID, where people are coming into the office maybe 2 days a week instead of 5 days a week, or coming in for a week at a time out of the quarter, and really you're coming together for the purposes of collaboration, for creativity, for communication, but then also spending time at home and kind of in this sort of hybrid environment, right? And I found myself, there's certain things I'm way more productive at home. Like if I need to go, read a document or write something, working at home is great. It's quiet, it's not interrupted. But for an all hands meeting, or if I want to bring people together or, measure the pulse of the team or do some creative problem solving, that in-person interaction is so invaluable. So I think the future of work is going to be more of a hybrid where we can do some stuff at home, some stuff in the office. I think it'll be greater flexibility for people, which I think will be great. And I think in terms of how you prepare, I think BC students will be well prepared for that. I think our generation, or maybe it's not my generation anymore, but the next generation, I'm kind of borderline, uses these tools every day. We're familiar with all these sort of online cloud tools with video collaboration. I think we're really well positioned, and BC students are really well positioned to kind of figure that out.
Good. So from my own personal research, I look a lot into like Matt Mullenweg with WordPress and some of his talks on the distributed workforce. Do you guys do any study of companies like, hey, how can we emulate what they do and bring that to WePay, to Chase, or are you guys just brainstorming internally? Or
yeah, I mean, I think I study a lot of those same folks and think about what our workforce could look like. I think one of the challenging things about JPMorgan Chase is we've got over 250,000 employees across the entire globe. And then there's all types of different jobs in that organization. There's people that work in a bank branch. There's people that work in a call center. There's people that like do cash operations and, bundle cash and stuff like that. And so, it's not, JPMorgan Chase could never be a totally remote workforce for that reason. We have a combination of sort of in-person and remote folks. But I think what we're learning is that we can be, certain jobs can be done remotely, can be done partially remotely. And, how do we create better flexibility, better collaboration, to be able to have the right people there and the right people working from home. And that, honestly, it's a learning journey for us right now. We're trying to figure that out.
Absolutely. Good. Well, before we get to my favorite round, is there anything else, any lasting words you'd like to say or anything you'd like to talk about with WePay or opportunities, or before we enter the once an eagle, always an eagle?
Nothing immediately comes to mind. I think it's, I think I would just sort of leave folks with, it's an exciting time. I know it's scary, but, with sort of challenges like this just comes opportunity. The world changes very, very, very fast. And with that comes, I think, career opportunities for people that can adapt, and that can sort of move quickly. And so
good.
Try to keep a sense of optimism about it. And, this too shall pass.
Absolutely. I think you said it, short-term realism, but long-term optimism, or something along those lines, correct?
Yeah, I didn't make that up. I stole it from someone else, but I'll gladly take credit for it. Yeah, I think,
we'll keep that one. Good. Well, Bill, we have to enter my favorite round within a BC alumni, but it's the once an eagle, always an eagle round. So you ready?
Sure.
Great. So I'd like to dress this question up a little bit. It's a Saturday night. You just got back with Rich and some of the other boys that you've had at school. It's around 1:30 at night. You go to Lower Live. What are you guys ordering?
Buffalo chicken wrap all the way.
It's a great one.
I've spent the last 10 years or 12 years post-graduation trying to find a buffalo chicken wrap that rivals the Lower Live buffalo chicken wrap. Doesn't exist.
Doesn't exist. I agree. Second question, favorite professor or administrator staff at BC?
I mean, it's hard because there's so many great ones to choose from. I think one that had a particular impact on my life would be Professor John Gallagher, who started the Tech Trek program and brought me out to Silicon Valley, for the first time. And really introduced me to the technology space in a compelling way. So he's, I think, a great treasure at BC.
Absolutely. And then finally, what is one thing every BC student should do before graduating?
One thing every BC student should do before graduating. I mean, there's a lot there. I would say, I think I would just go back to the internships and just say, I think really trying something that's way outside your comfort zone,
Yep.
and whether that's an internship or a class, I'm the least, probably the least theatrical person you ever meet, but I took intro to theater at BC, and I think, really use it as an opportunity to do something way outside your comfort zone. And
Get outside your comfort zone. I love it. I love it. That's great. And I think I think we can mention this. You were Baldwin at one point. You've definitely explored and done a whole bunch of different things, and it comes back to help in the future.
totally, that was way outside my comfort zone when I
There you
started.
go. Good. Bill, it's been a pleasure having you on the Fulton Career Cast, and we look forward to your success, continued success with WePay and navigating these troubling waters. But I know you guys will weather the storm and get through it.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. Have a good one.